Today we have Jeff Harrington and Brent Bartels with us, both from Beck Group Denver office. And Brent is an architect senior designer, Jeff is a senior pre-construction manager, and Jeff has been using Profiler for about 4 years consistently and is going to give us some insight into 2 projects. And with that, I'll go ahead and let Jeff and Brent get started.
Thanks, Holly. Brent and I are excited to be a part of today's webinar and share how we use Profiler and how the owner and design team can benefit from leveraging that tool. So today we'll give a brief introduction of who we are, who Beck is as a company, and then who Brent and I are as individuals within Beck. Briefly discuss how we use Profiler in the Denver office, and have a couple of sample projects to share with you. So Beck is a design build firm providing both design and construction services. We also have other services that we can provide. Beck Tech is one of them. We also have sustainability, virtual building groups, and a few other services that we provide as a company. We've been around since 1912 and been in operations here in Colorado for 30 plus years. And our office makeup here is a pretty even split between, or becoming a pretty even split between our construction team and our architecture branch with some new additions here recently. So my name is Jeff Harrington. I'm an assistant pre-construction manager here in Colorado. I've been working in pre-con with Beck for 4 years and have utilized Profiler in all of my conceptual estimates and then several schematic design estimates. And I'll let Brent quickly introduce himself.
Yeah, good morning. It's Brent Bartels, and Jeff and I have been working together as a team for probably the last 2.5 years or so, pretty consistently on projects. The nice thing about our office with integration, we have architects in-house and are doing a lot of work on multiple projects over and over. So it's nice to have that consistency. You can see here a couple of qualities about ourselves. I think we bring kind of 2 sides of the spectrum together in terms of our approach, and really, Profiler is something that I think helps us as a tool to really kind of mind meld in some ways and take both of the qualities that we have and things that we enjoy doing on a daily basis and bring them together to, one, be more efficient and really help the process be a lot smoother.
All right. So if you're an estimator or in pre-construction, you've probably seen this Dilbert comic before. But owners in today's market are pushing and requesting more and more information up front so that they can make decisions, go, no-go decisions. And so they require and expect accurate estimates early on in the project. This can be, extremely challenging, especially if all you have to go from is maybe a site plan or a single floor plan for a building without, any exterior finish information or interior finish information, or what type of structural systems the project may require. But in this early on part of project initiation, this is exactly where a Profiler fits and where we use it in our Beck office. We use it for conceptual estimates as well as schematic estimates. And so the Profiler as a tool kind of fits perfectly right up front. And so kind of what we're looking at here is a pretty busy slide, but it's the McWhinney curve, and it's basically kind of depicting that the ability to impact, project costs early on in the job is much easier than later on in the project, and the cost of making those changes early in the job is just more efficient. And so being able to leverage and utilize Profiler to provide full detailed estimates at a conceptual level can help facilitate decisions early on and impact projects early on in turn saving clients money and saving design team and construction team headaches down the road once you get into DD and CD level documents.
Yeah, in terms of our process, we'll talk through these next couple of slides. Really there's a lot of forces at work, especially early on in the project. I'm sure you guys are well aware of. These are 5 of the ones that we tend to concentrate on and create alignment within. So, really Jeff and I's early duties is to really get as tight as we can on these things, communicate often, and Profiler really helps us do that as much as we can. So,
yeah, and you can kind of think of this as a 5-legged stool. In construction we always talk about the 3-legged stool being schedule, cost, and design. But in this scenario here that we have depicted it, a 5-legged stool, and Profiler helps align 4 out of these 5 items. We've got cost, design, the owner's requirements, and programming. And Profiler helps us communicate visually and keep 4 of these legs in alignment. And as the project moves forward, obviously we'll start paying closer attention to schedule. But we don't use Profiler to build our schedules. Again, here's just a kind of another slide showing alignment. Ideally, you would have a perfect straight line between your owner's requirements, cost, design, program, and schedule. Diagram number 2 here, you can see that on a typical project, a lot of times design and cost get out of alignment, owner's requirements and programming get out of alignment. It can be a pretty crazy process. But then diagram number 3, we utilize Profiler early on to ensure that we are keeping owner's requirements, cost, design, and programming in as best alignment as we can. And it's a great tool to communicate with the design team and communicate with the owner that the pre-construction is understanding design intent and that costs are being accounted for visually. And I think it's worked really well for Brent and I in ensuring that our design is meeting all of those intents. So just kind of quickly, again, how we use Profiler. In pre-construction, it is a conceptual and schematic estimating tool for us. It improves our efficiency and saves our time because we can kind of quickly pop up models, create massings, apply costs. It's a formulaic tool, so as we make adjustments to massing after it's had costs applied to it, it will automatically adjust the project costs. Building these Profiler models also helps us understand the project and grow our knowledge of the project, and being able to review that with Brent and with the design team, make sure that we are understanding the design intent. But it's also an excellent visual aid tool. It's great for communicating with ownership and providing them kind of massing studies, site layouts, and communicates alignment to ownership that our design team and pre-construction on the same side, and in providing models that look fairly close to what the design team is putting together. And then just kind of lastly, it's communication. Probably can't hit on that enough, but it is an excellent communication tool.
Yeah, so in terms of the way that Jeff and I kind of iterate together, you can see a few of these models popping up on the lower right-hand side. We tend to, do kind of an early model, and then, once I as the architect have some idea of massing and a plan and the programmatic needs, we're putting that into Profilers as soon as we can, and then really updating that as we go along. Sometimes it'll be, depending upon the client and how often we're getting with them, up to every 2 weeks or so that we're creating a new model. But really trying to use that to trend against and, understand if things are changing within the design, how that's impacting cost right up front, as opposed to, going through a couple iterations and then presenting costs. So really trying to, reconcile any differences of scope. So, sometimes either in Revit or in SketchUp, we'll be creating our own kind of matrix of program as designed. And then what Jeff will do is go build the model kind of in a vacuum for a day or so. And then we'll get together and share numbers, share, kind of where we are in terms of gross square foot, and make sure that, scan and all those things are really kind of where we anticipated them being. So, and then I think just, the ability to kind of fly through to make sure that Jeff understands, sectionally and three-dimensionally, how things are coming together, to be able to see things outside of a spreadsheet, and a set of, two-dimensional drawings really allows for that depth and level of clarity. And then also, I think applying the right value in the right areas. So, pulling from one bucket and giving to another and saying, well, this is, this orientation of the building isn't going to see much exposure. Maybe it's back of house. Let's put more definition up here. So really in terms of scope, being able to shift our costs to the right places and create value where they're the most beneficial.
Yeah, and kind of continuing with that, Brent, that a lot of our projects go through an iterative process where we may have 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 profiler models or 5 iterations of the same model to make sure that we are in alignment with design and the design's intent and with the owner's requirements. And a couple of the projects that we'll show you here next went through several design iterations, went through several conceptual ideas, and so we had to create kind of multiple models to ensure that we're meeting design intent and owner's requirements and the cost intent for the project. So our first job that we're going to share is 15th and Stout. It's a dual brand hotel here in downtown Denver. It's 22 stories, and it was a new client to us. They were interested in kind of our design build process and engaged us to perform some site and program studies. And in doing so, we started designing a 22-story building, a 380 key hotel, and went through several different design iterations to get to a recommended design. So starting with some of that programming studying, Brent studied to see how tall of a building can we put, how much square footage can we put on the site. We needed parking, how many parking spots, and so we kind of monkeyed around programming wise, and then once we felt comfortable with where we were, we went ahead and started programming some of the interior spaces within Profiler and applying costs to those, applying costs to guest rooms, amenity areas, parking garage, and below grade. And while I was off and our pre-con team was off working on this, the design team moved forward to start studying different skin scenarios. And so we had multiple skin scenarios. I think we settled on 3. And of the 3, the owner was interested in 2 of them. So you see 2 of them here. We'll call one, option A and option B. And so you can see the architectural conceptual model. Brent put these together in SketchUp, and then I took the SketchUp model and reinterpreted it into Profiler, applying costs to the different skin components, and so you can see the side-by-side comparison of how close and accurate our Profiler models were to the design intent and to the renderings. And so you kind of quickly see a list of attributes of each building, and ultimately breaking down the building into each finished material, their quantities and their square footages, and applying unit costs to each one of those. We were able to kind of quickly identify or put together costs for each option, and present that to ownership. So we're taking some conceptual designs, some conceptual renderings, and applying them to the massing that we created to meet the programming requirements. And kind of quickly, we're able to narrow down the skin options and apply costs of those skins to ownership to help provide them some direction and make some decisions on
so
what they
this can
like
happen on multiple levels with this project. It was really about the skin and kind of how we interpreted that. Sometimes we'll do it relative to program. You know, a lot of people want to understand parking and some of the ratios there, depending upon the typology, whether we go into the ground, whether we come up out of the ground with parking. So just depending upon, you know, where the client is at what stage, we iterate with them and try to, you know, it's nice too sometimes to have two different, I guess, options or sets that we can kind of ping against one another. That way they can see if you push and pull this one, what does it do relative to the other one, and kind of gives them some way to gauge overall costs and how those are being balanced one against the other. So this is a couple sets, final renderings. This is currently under construction. I think they're, you know, pouring the 3rd or 4th level deck as we speak. So, you know, going up here in Denver, but, you know, pretty healthy project for us, right in the heart of downtown. And, you know, it is budget constrained in terms of some of the materials, and even the overall massing, but feel pretty proud of the way it's come together, and how much depth and relief it has, especially at the ground plane. And one of those things, you know, where is the value add? How can we put the money in the right places? Really, Profiler allowed us to make some of those decisions pretty early on in the project and carry them through to this point. So we'll move on to the next project.
Also gave ownership a level of comfort in that the estimate was in alignment with the design intent. Yes, our next job is called Boulder Industry and Art Center. It's an office building located in Boulder, Colorado. This was a third-party pursuit for us, so construction only, and it was a pretty high-end design, if you will. Had some interesting exterior skin attributes, PVC membrane. If you're familiar with DIA, a similar membrane to what is found at Denver International Airport. It was a 55,000 square foot office building, and again, it was a third-party pursuit. So we had a couple of conceptual floor plans that we modeled off of to put together, build our budget. And in utilizing Profiler and submitting our proposal for construction-only services, the ownership team was pretty impressed with the level of detail that our estimate drilled down into, and also our understanding of the project by really studying it, modeling it, kind of building it in 3D, and understanding some of the significant costs in building shape and building materials. And when we priced this out, it came in around $356 a square foot, and it was pretty significantly over the owner's budget. And so we, in talking with them after our submittal, we offered to provide them a design build or an integrated proposal to try and provide them a building that would be in alignment with where their budget was. And so they gave us a target of $220 a square foot, and And so within a 10-day period, we were able to put together 3 or 4 different options and a couple of profiler models with estimates to go with those options. And so within you know, a 2-month period from when we were invited to bid third party to assigned integrated proposal was one of the fastest project wins that we've had, and we were able to kind of quickly turn around several designs and design iterations with pricing, with different exterior materials and different building layouts, and win this project as an integrated project for our office. And here's kind of a rendering of where design is at today on that project. So pretty significant change from the curved and the PVC membranes, but still delivering the same programming and square footage that the owner required, but in a more cost-effective shape and exterior finishes. So with that, we've got. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff and Brent. We'll go ahead and open it up for questions. I do have one here, but please do feel free to send some in. I know that you showed 3 design scenarios for 15th and Stout. Were you able to provide an owner with that many choices before Profiler, or would it have just taken you longer? Could you kind of speak to how that would work?
Yeah, I think it certainly would have taken longer, and it may not have been as accurate. So it's a good question, and I'll show you one of our Profiler models for 15th and Stout. So here are the 2 options, and being able to kind of quickly clad each option and apply costs is a time saver, and helps me understand, you know, and think through how the building comes together in a 3D model. Yeah, we'll model these up, and you know, an exercise like this may take me you know, half a day or so, 3 or 4 hours to skin a building and apply cost to it. So certainly a time saver, and also an excellent visual aid tool to again show that our pre-construction team is in alignment and understanding of the design intent and owner's requirements and on the same page. And it's just excellent at communicating that.
Yeah.
And then on that, sorry, Brent, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, on the architecture side, we probably modeled, I think, 9 or 10 versions of this in SketchUp and or Revit prior to handing off these 2 versions. I think, as Jeff said earlier, there are a few versions that the owner was interested in. We decided to go ahead and price out 2 of them to kind of show kind of rough order of magnitude between the 2. So,
yeah,
hopefully that answers the question.
You know, another kind of quick benefit to being able to model and show different iterations. This is another hotel project that we had worked on recently, where we were studying different massings and different programmatic layouts, and so we're able to kind of quickly pop these massings up and apply some cladding to them with some cost, and provide, you know, skin to floor or floor to skin ratios to show or prove building layout efficiency as it pertains to, you know, project costs. And so this is another hotel, another example of, you know, we haven't started studying skin yet, but we had started studying programming and trying to understand, you know, which shapes and what circulation would be most cost effective. And so it's really pretty easy to kind of understand the flow and the project when you can kind of quickly build it in 3D, and it just helps out a bunch.
So I know that Brent would give you a SketchUp model. Are you using that SketchUp model, or are you just starting from scratch in Profiler?
So we are, we'll use the SketchUp model. I'll bring it into Profiler, but the SketchUp model, when you bring it in, can be somewhat challenging to work with, but I'll bring it in as a visual aid to me, and helping me understand the massing and size and scale of the project. But I'll also use, kind of SketchUp on the side and fly around the SketchUp model and pull dimensions if I need to help me kind of understand, building floor plates and footprints and heights and things like that, floor to floor heights, that kind of information I'll pull just straight out of SketchUp and model it in Profiler.
Gotcha. And then on that, we just had a question come in. Do you need to know how to use SketchUp, or can you just build it in Profiler? And just,
you can
just to
build
speak to that, you can definitely build it in Profiler. I don't know if you ever just do that, Jeff, or if you always go off of the SketchUp.
No, most of the time I build it in Profiler. So if I bring in a SketchUp model, it is just for reference. And in the way Profiler understands SketchUp, it understands the shapes and the size, but it doesn't understand the massing. So you really need to build it yourself within Profiler. But bringing in a SketchUp model can just help you with laying out the building, understanding its massing and sizing, and ensure that what you're modeling is kind of in alignment with what the SketchUp model looks like.
Great, and then we'll just ask one more question and then we'll let everyone go. How long did it take to create the multiple iterations, and was that driven by pre-construction or the designers?
So Brent, I'll let you kind of take that. So I think it was driven by, I would say it was driven by design. They put together multiple iterations. I think Brent had said that they had 9, and they had whittled it down or narrowed it down to just a couple. And so I'll let Brent kind of speak to, the time it took for them to create those, call it 9 iterations. And then once they narrowed it down, it took Precon about a day or so to really accurately model those, understand and apply costs to them, and then review that and make adjustments as needed. So to kind of create those 2 different skinned buildings would take about a day and a half to kind of lay this out and cost it.
Yeah, I think, to Jeff's point, hopefully a lot of the work in terms of the design has been done either in a separate software or another phase. I think, depending upon where we are, it could take, anywhere from, a couple of days to a month or so, depending upon client and pace and stuff like that. So it's really on the design side, a little bit dependent upon the project type, the scale of it. So, but I think hopefully the question that you're answering is relative to Jeff's process and how long it takes him to kind of convert something that we've done. And usually that happens with, depending upon, once again, the scale of the project, within a day or two. So.
Right. Yeah. And, each project is a little different. And each client is a little different. But we may have gone through, these 2 skin iterations here and get a better understanding of balance of glass and metal panels and curtain wall. And, neither one of these could have worked, but we would have a better understanding of what the balance would need to be. And so we've had projects where we've gone to 2, 3, 4, 5 iterations until we've come up with an iteration that meets design intent, that meets owner's requirements, and then also meets budget. And that's just kind of talking back to that iterative process. Fortunately, on this 15th and Stout, we only needed to model a couple of different ones, and they they you know, met those three items: design, owner requirements, and cost.
Yeah, one thing that we haven't really talked too much to is kind of the engine and all the numbers behind this too. So, you know, there's really a couple of toggles. You know, of course, structural is a big one, and then oftentimes we're dealing with skin, window to wall ratio. You know, what is the material of these pieces and parts, especially on a building, you know, this size. You make a small tweak to a material and it shifts the numbers pretty dramatically in terms of that skin and the ratio of the overall number. So architecturally, those are some of the things that we concentrate on, but you know, using it kind of at different levels or phases to define any one thing. You know, this one obviously is concentrating on skin, but it can be programming, it can be structural elements, it can be, you know, parking and ramping. And the nice thing is that, you know, the owner comes to us and says, hey, we want to study this. This is what we would like to understand. And we're giving them not just design, but, you know, some iteration on pricing that kind of adheres to that design. And, you know, we've grown a lot, Jeff and I, in terms of the lag time on that. You know, when we first started working together, it was, you know, there definitely was a lag, but, you know, in the last couple of projects that we've done, we're definitely getting more synced up and aligned so that we can present those kind of one and the same.
Great. Well, thank you, Jeff and Brent. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up just in respect for everyone's time. I wanted to thank everyone for attending, and thank you, Jeff and Brent, for presenting.
Thank
Thanks
you
for the opportunity.